And good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition here of the Man of Steel podcast. With, of course, yours truly, Charles Prodigy Richey. We are streaming live right now, starting a little bit later than usual. But before we begin, prayers, love, and deep condolences to Gale Sayers and his family, as everyone around the NFL has found out this morning that the NFL and the Pro Football Hall of Fame has lost a true legend. Of course, me being from Chicago, I did not grow up during his playing career. I was born in 1983. But Gale Sayers, he passes away, as it was announced, at the age of 77 years old. Truly one of the elite runners and greatest men of all time. Just before I started my show, I was watching a documentary on NFL Network, A Football Life, which is one of my favorite documentaries I like to watch on Hall of Fame players. They were talking about, they were doing one on Gale Sayers and Dick Butkus right there. And basically, it was just amazing when those two played together. They were not able to get any playoff success, yet alone deliver a championship to the Bears at that time. But both of them, nonetheless, went on to have first ballot Hall of Fame careers when we look at it. Gale Sayers, as everyone may recall, when his career ended, he had a knee injury, was never the same. I want to say it happened around 1970 is when it happened. I think it was a game against the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken, when he got hurt. Basically, yeah, so he suffered a knee injury, basically, in the 1970 preseason. He suffered a second one, and it was bone bruises to his left knee, trying to play through the injury against the opening game against the Giants, but definitely very limited. He retired during the 1971 season. So, and there you have it right there. And honestly, I mean, this was a guy who definitely was one of the many people who came after the NFL with concussion lawsuits back in 2013, claiming that the league negligently handles repeated head injuries during his career. The lawsuit claimed that Sayers suffered headaches and short-term memory loss since retirement, and stated he was sometimes sent back into games after suffering concussions and that the league did not do enough to protect him. The case was withdrawn after Sayers claimed it was filed without his permission, but he filed a new lawsuit in January 2014 along with 6 other former players. That's one thing that does not seem to go away, not surprisingly, right there. I mean, when you look at a lot of retired players, and ever since like 10 years ago, can you believe it or not, once the NFL started being a lot more strict as far as like helmet-to-helmet hits, trying to make the game safe as possible. And, I mean, it's one of the things that continues to not go unnoticed. I mean, when we look at, I mean, that's one of the things that Commissioner Roger Goodell has vowed to do is try to make this game as safe as possible. And when you really look at it right now, I mean, you can't help but just feel for him. And I was just watching his reaction just recently before I went and did this show. We're going to get to Steelers talk in a moment. But again, for those of you joining in, aside from just being Steelers fans or just NFL fans in general, the late Gale Sayers just passed away. Sad to see him go. Truly one of the truest icons in this league. And in my opinion, he was like the pre-Barry Sanders of his time right there. The way he could like run, do cutbacks, and a guy that was just definitely hard to tackle at the end of the day. And a guy who definitely prided himself a lot during his career, and I think did a lot to contribute right there. When you think about like the hard-hitting days in the NFL, what probably type of a different era as we look at it. I mean, he came from a gritty era, no doubt about it, and we'll see what happens from there. But anyway, if you guys have any memories, just watching as a football fan, where would you rank Gale Sayers among, as far as like elite running backs in this game? Of course, I mean, Steelers fans will always pride themselves with Franco Harris, Jerome Bettis. But when you look across the league, too, because even Chicago, like not too long after his playing days were over, I think about 1975 is when Walter Payton, who became a Chicago Bear right there, was able to get a Super Bowl ring behind a great defense and was able to have a successful career being an MVP himself. I want to say that was back in 1977, but it was just a really, I mean, like I said, the era was just a lot more different back then. And it was just a lot more physicality and demanding as usual. So, like I said, where do you rank him amongst the greatest? Do you even put him in your top three, your top five? Or what would be your Mount Rushmore of running backs? Feel free to let me know in the page here on the Mass Steel Facebook page, and of course, Mass Steel Podcast Instagram. Once again, you can follow me on social media at Prodigy Richey for the Mass Steel Podcast on Twitter. It is at Mass Steel CGR, and on Instagram at Men of Steel Nation. As we continue to get a lot more stuff real quick over here for today's show edition here. Definitely got some power rankings. I would definitely like to go over a little bit later on. Maybe I'll save it for next week, but right now, let's get into it right now. The Watt brothers, basically this past week, as mentioned by Angela Tegnalia, one of the Pittsburgh Steelers communications coordinators, and she put this very noteworthy thing up on there yesterday. This past Sunday, the Watt brothers, TJ and JJ, of course, his brother being with the Texans, both combined for 4.5 sacks altogether. 2.5 for TJ, which came for a loss of 20 yards, and of course, 2 for JJ. And this is the second most sacks in a single week by brothers in the history of the NFL. The list does work on this way. Back in this order: number 1, week number 8 a year ago in 2019 with Joey and Nick Bosa. Joey with 2 sacks, and of course Nick Bosa with 3 for a total of 5 sacks. As we look at it, I mean, of course, as you know, Nick Bosa right now, I think his season right now appears to be done for the year, and we're going to get into that a little bit later on. But we'll see what happens with that. I mean, right now, Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas are injured reserve, so they may be able to come back. I'm not sure. Yeah, there is a season-ending surgery for Nick Bosa, so his season is done. That was confirmed 2 days ago, right there as we took a look at it. According to Yahoo Sports, a big devastating loss for a team like the 49ers, who was looking to continue to be in Super Bowl contention, for this year, and try and feed off their momentum from Super Bowl 54, trying to get back to that dance. The other people on this list, so we got number 1, Joey and Nick Bosa. Nick had more sacks than Joey. He had 3 for the Chargers, while Joey had 2. That was total for 5. Third on the list, following TJ and JJ Watt, is Watt brothers themselves. Once again, their third, week number 5 in 2018, where JJ had 4 and TJ had 3. They combined for 7 sacks right here. But really think about it right here. I mean, for TJ and JJ here, I mean, they got 8.5 sacks pretty much, which is the most by brothers in the history of the NFL. I mean, if you think about it. I mean, the Bosa brothers are not coming up on this list twice. And last but not least, you also have from week number 2 back in 1985, Toby Williams of the Patriots with 2, and Jimmy Williams of the Detroit Lions with 2 for a total of 4. And you know what? I mean, TJ Watt continues to be a phenomenal all-around player. Proving-wise, continues to be an all-pro after the game for the first time last year. What this guy can do, I mean, such a special talent right here. From week number 2, like a Kevin Green, alone of Clay Matthews. I mean, this guy just continues to his work ethic just continues to be off the charts. And you got to better believe that he's being taken care of on the Steelers as far as contracts concerned, big money. I mean, will the Steelers even think about tagging him once again? I mean, that'd be the question right there. I mean, that'd be another thing. I mean, him and his agent are going to want to make sure, along with his brother JJ, that he gets taken care of, he does not get screwed over or cheated. But you better believe for right now, when we look at it, I really do believe that Watt has earned this right now. He's only been to the playoffs one time, but yet alone his body of work on the field continues to speak for itself. And it's no secret why he continues to light up the charts right here. When you look at a guy like TJ Watt's career here, and when you look at it too, as far as in his NFL career, TJ, altogether, he has 37 sacks along with 39 tackles for loss, 76 quarterback hits, okay? And like I said, he just already earned his first All-Pro honor in his first year. And we'll see what happens for right now. I mean, this guy who's been named team MVP for last season and continues just really just step up to the plate and just deliver an unfathomable amount of ways here. I mean, this guy just continues just to live, breathe, and bleed Steeler football as far as that Blitzburg nation right there. And it was just really exceptional. And like I said, continues to just be off the charts. We'll see how this continues to go for right now. But definitely want to get your thoughts right now. And not only that, too, he was also named AFC Defensive Player of the Week following week number 2. And I think that is a pretty awesome honor right there when we look at it. And we'll see how this continues to shape up for right now. I mean, right now, when we look at the Steelers overall with their defensive ranks, one of the number one things I like personally, aside from just being tops and takeaways, which is second in that category, along being the second most sacks, they got 10 for the year. I think Washington football team has got most with 11 due to their enormous amount of sacks they had in their first game against the Eagles, which seems their season seems to be derailing quickly if they don't turn around and fix things. But one thing I like the most, number one in red zone defense. Let that sink in for a minute. Number one in red zone defense. I mean, and they only allowed 29% of opponents to score on them in the red zone. I mean, they were fourth back in 2019. And then let's see. And then they were 16th in 2018. And then as far as 2017, 3 years ago, when they still had a legit defense, they were 31st. So they got scored on a lot more in the red zone, despite having the good top total defense. And then 2016, they were, let's see. I'm pulling this up, so bear with me, guys. They were 5th. And in 2015, they were 6th. So number one for right now, just for the first 2 games starting off. Like I said, my only biggest beef I had with the Steelers, I think just starting off the season, was just the penalties right here. That's the biggest thing I got very concerned with. I mean, when you look at the season here, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they got definitely a great team, very respected. I'm just one of those critics who, after a while, I mean, I love the product that they're putting on the field. I mean, they're definitely a force to be reckoned with. Got a very good championship level. When you hear a guy like Ben Roethlisberger state that this is one of the big reasons why he wanted to come back, because he saw what kind of a special unit he had on with his defense and then the younger teammates on offense, but more particularly how much of a special thing he didn't want to miss out on as far as being with this team and trying to contribute in any way he can in the hopes of getting another Super Bowl when we look at it. Because for right now, another thing too, when I look at it, I mean, for the Steelers and everything that they were doing, because remember, penalties, they had about 6 of those penalties in that game, which accounted for 60% of it. And right now, the good news as far as the penalties as for this year, they only give up only 8 penalties for 55 yards. That ranks 28th. So that's good news at least. Like I said, I just think week 2, I mean, that should have been a shutout, if not for those penalties right there. Mika Fitzpatrick would definitely got hit with quite a bit in that game. And I think Mike Hilton got hit with a huge one for 17 yards. But still, I really do believe for right now, I mean, these are one of the things that if you wonder what gets in their way, it's stuff like that. When we really think about it, when we really look at it, I just feel like for right now, the Steelers right now, if they could just find a way to clean it up and just do well in communication, I think they'll be fine. We'll see about that. That will continue to remain to be seen. It's just right now, like I said, I feel you just got to continue to play soundly because that drive right there against the Broncos, that was almost supposed to be a touchdown, if you ask me. But thank God for Terrell Edmonds getting a huge game-sealing sack right there. And then we saw James Conner burst out at the end for a big 59-yard run, I want to say. Was able to get over 100 yards rushing, but still, I mean, you look at what they could be doing here. But other than that, I think right now, I had a hard time convincing myself I'll be pleased with that victory. I mean, I was glad it was 2-0, but it was one of those games where it definitely felt like it was a loss. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and get into some more articles right now here, too. Pittsburgh, DK Pittsburgh Sports reports that Banner feels bad. MetLife turf led to torn ACL because the 49ers lost a number of players, which, of course, Nick Bosa, who's gone for the season right now. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to come back if they qualify for the playoffs. The knee and ankle injuries, and immediately blamed turf at MetLife Stadium. I mean, that's not good right there as far as like with the Giants Jets Stadium right here. But yeah, I mean, legitimate problem? I would have to think so because there's a lot of stadiums right now who usually use that natural grass or the turf. I still get a little thrown off like how that really affects players on the field, capability of playing, but we shall see about that. Also, too, let's go ahead and get into the injury report. Good news about the injury report. I know the Steelers have listed 9 players. I tweeted out on my Twitter page at SteelCGR. Of those 9 stars, David DeCastro, remember, who's had the knee injury since the end of August, back on August 28th, he was finally a full participant in practice. That is some good news right there, if you ask me. If you're a Steeler fan, I forgot to check the stats. I'll check on that right now. So give me a moment here. We'll try and pull it up while I'm bringing this report to you guys. Find this out later in the afternoon. So his game status doesn't seem to be questionable or anything for right now, but finally have your right guard, David DeCastro, practice. That is a huge thing. And when you look at the offensive line, because that was one of the things which I felt like this team was getting a little bit battered on going into this matchup against the Broncos. Of course, you got a Texans team who's going to be frustrated, trying to get their first victory of the year. I mean, you look at the depth of that right guard. Who you got after that? You got Kevin Dotson. Kevin Dotson had to fill in, I think, this past week at right tackle, and I gave him a lot of props right there. I haven't heard guys like former Steeler linebacker Arthur Moats just saying, like, I mean, along with his co-hosts, how he was able to, like, push people around and maul people right there, and especially it helped James Conner get that big burst at the end of the game. I mean, he was working out, I think, with a pickup truck, and I'm sure what a lot of linemen do, where they're practicing with cars. So Kevin Dotson right here, I'm definitely really interested to see what he's able to, like, be. Is he going to be one of those new shining gems here at the offensive line position? A guy who was drafted this year back in the 4th round out of Louisiana. And I really like to see how he does right here. I mean, for this team. And, boy, I mean, it will definitely be a fun one to watch. But, man, Dotson, I really believe he's got some good potential right here who could really do some stuff here. 135th overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. And like I said, hopefully he's a bright spot, a future spot for this team once they do continue to recycle their guys and have to reload that front right there, because that is huge right there. I mean, also trying to keep Ben Roethlisberger healthy. When you got a healthy Roethlisberger finally. I mean, only one pick so far throughout the year. I mean, this season. And you, speaking of Ben Roethlisberger, when we look at his return so far in only 2 games, I mean, for right now, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Starting off right now, let that sink in. That's a pretty good start for right now, if you ask me. And he's already thrown for 504 yards. And remember, he's also passed up Eli Manning, I believe it is, for 7th all time as far as like career, or as far as like the all-time passing yards leaders. And Ben for right now, man, I gotta tell you, it's definitely going to be fun to watch him, see how he continues to work things out here, averaging 270 yards a game. And it's fun just watching what he's able to do here. But, man, I mean, just the beauty of that game, I think a lot of people remember, is just that bomb he threw to Chase Claypool in that contest right there and what he's been able to do. Again, we're talking Steelers football. As Pittsburgh Steelers, they'll be getting ready to check on the Houston Texans this coming Sunday. And we will definitely have some more stuff here. I was planning to have a guest on Monday. I know a lot of people were noticing me having some technical difficulties, so I want to apologize to everybody about that. But let's see, Lindell, if you're listening, I wanted to just try and do this show solo today, make sure there's no issues before I have you back on. We'll definitely be having a guest on here coming up. Her name is Linda Warlick. She's a professional stylist, real quick. She'll be coming on here. She actually covers the Steelers and the 76ers writing-wise. And hear her thoughts as far as like the Steelers season. And we'll be talking about a lot of stuff, including like how the NFL continues to support Black Lives Matter, social justice, and everything in today's society as we try and figure that stuff out. Also, too, for right now, Coach Mike Tomlin, as far as like on Ben Roethlisberger's first 2 games, he was quoted saying, "I like where he's at, but there's more meat on the bone. I'm excited about him continuing to knock the rust off and find his all-pro form right here." And right now, I got a couple people. I want to just give quick shout-outs here to Instagram who are tuning in. Thank you very much. Pete_Avalos, senior _ 1961. Thank you very much for joining. I got Dispute _ the Beast. Go _ 3-timer. Always a pleasure seeing you, my man. Thank you very much. McGee Brothers joined. And, of course, 4C Daniel, if I'm saying that, please let me know. Correct me on the pronunciation. If I am saying that wrong, I do apologize for that for right now. And glad to have you guys on here on the show doing this. But other than that, and thank you very much, Rob, by the way, too. Another big Steeler fan right there, who you could always, who's in Pittsburgh, one of my friends, Rob Maury. Always a great support, my man. Always glad to hear you doing well. But anyway, like I said, number 1 in red zone defense. That's one of the things that blows my mind about the Steelers defense. If they could just clean up the penalties right now. I was one of the people on record just saying this is an undisciplined team because of that, because of the penalties. Maybe I am overreacting a lot more. But at the same time, too, the thing is, I don't know about anyone else, but I keep hearing about how great this defense is, how much they could be not only a playoff, but a Super Bowl contending team. I just hate to see stuff like this, like stain what they're accomplishing on the field. I just feel you just got to be smarter at the end of the day, the way I look at it. I mean, for when you're wanting to get serious. Because at the same time, I do believe stuff like this, it costs them shutouts and easy victories sometimes. But then again, in the life of the NFL, it's not always going to be easy victories. And I understand that. I respect that. And we shall see how this continues to go for right now. Also, I just want to hear your thoughts right now on the injury report. I mean, what do you guys think about David DeCastro finally being able to practice? I mean, how does that make you feel about the offensive line situation? I mean, just to hear him finally being a full participant. I think that is huge for right now because there have been like three other guys who had knee injuries listed on this report. You got Juju Smith-Schuster, of course, David DeCastro, and then last but not least, Tyson Alalalu, defensive end right now. So Ben, Deontay, Juju, Marquise, Tuitt, Tyson, and Cam. They did not practice. You had Ben, Marquise, Stefan, and Cam. They did not practice due to non-injury related injuries. The only other guy that does have an injury on here, he's been kind of dealing with it throughout the year. He's been playing through it, is Deontay Johnson. He started off with a foot and then a toe the last 2 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see how he's doing throughout the season. Maybe that explains why, he's been having trouble focusing. I don't know if that excuses him for the muff punt earlier in the season, but still, I mean, when you're trying to play through such pain like that, I mean, how much does it really affect a guy, their mindset, as far as their level of focus? That's what I'm curious about, and we'll find out. But like I said, Mike Tomlin was just saying, listen, I'm not going to use this stuff as excuses. I mean, they've been preparing virtually all offseason. I mean, it's about a level playing field for everybody, where you want to think it that way or not, or want to believe it. But when you have no preseason, I feel a lot of people, there will be many people still attesting the struggles to no preseason. How do you feel, Steelers fans, about that? Do you still believe deep down inside having no preseason shows some of the lack thereof of their performance this past week 2? I mean, and then the only part that just kind of bothered me a little bit too, I mean, when you look at the first 2 games here, I mean, you're giving up to 37 points total to losing teams, yet they are 7th in points defense to losing teams. And I can understand Monday night because that's being a primetime game, that's under the lights. I'm always a believer when you play under the spotlight right there, there's going to be more points being racked up because it's prime time. A lot more teams get fired up playing on there. And I'll expect a little bit more defensive miscues. But on a game like Sunday in your home opener, well, especially when you're going up against a backup quarterback in Driscoll, you have to do a little bit better than that. And I was just a little disappointed they had to keep them hanging around. And like I said, they almost beat them right there. I mean, in that contest right there, at 2-touchdown lead at half, I mean, you're pretty much a score, 18-9 in the second half there. And like I said, I just felt like that was just a little bit unacceptable. It was just a little bit too close for comfort. But like I said, all in all, like I said, the biggest bullet points we got to remember for the Steelers defense going into this year, when we really look at it, is that here's the bottom line for them. Let's go over the defensive stats right now. I mean, they are 6th in points defense, or 7th, I should say, with 37. 2nd in total defense at 610 yards. 2nd in takeaways, which includes 3 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery. They're ranked 2nd in interceptions, by the way. 14th in passing yards, 16th in passing touchdowns, 2nd in sacks. Run defense is doing phenomenal so far. I mean, just to send a message early to a guy like Saquon Barkley right there, fantasy football first-round pick, he's out for the season, as we just found out Sunday. He's gone. So number 1 in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. And like I said, number 1 in red zone scoring defense, allowing about 29% almost. So let's go ahead and get into the power rankings real quick. I know it's usually through going into week number 3. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who, by the way, since during the offseason, when we look at, they started off 11th since the post-draft. And then going into week 1, they start off at 12th. So Steelers, after right now, after starting off at 12th, for the year and working their way up to fourth overall in the power rankings. They jumped up 8 spots. 8 spots in the power rankings. They're in the top 4. Number 1 is the Ravens right now, who actually just overtook the Chiefs for right now. Chiefs dropped down to the number 2 spot, and then you got the Packers at number 3 and the Steelers at 4, Seahawks at 5, Bills at 6, Titans at 7, Rams at 8, Saints at 9, and Patriots at 10. So 8 spots, which is pretty good. All in all, I mean, nothing to be too upset over. I know I was ranting a lot more about the Pellies, but when I hear stuff like that, that makes me feel a little bit good. And real quickly, favorite final topic number 1 is the only one I got tonight. We got a running back controversy on the Steelers right now. I will say fair for right now because when you got, I mean, both Snell and Connor had 100 yards rushing back-to-back weeks, even though Connor got the bulk of his yards in clutch time, not garbage time, I would think that I need to see a little bit more out of Connor, who's playing for a contract year, versus like a guy in Benny Snell, who's in his second year. Not really expecting to see Anthony McFarland get called up unless James Conner does get hurt and he has to be a backup to Snow, which he's already third on the depth chart. But yeah, I will say fair for right now. Because you know what, I'm one of many people, I don't know about anyone thinking this mindset, but I really believe if both Conner and Snell could stay healthy, why not make them a 1-2 punch? I really believe why. I mean, I was still one of the guys with the proponents of having Connor as your bell cow for this team, but I really do believe it doesn't hurt to use a multi set of backs for this year. I don't know about anyone else, but that's where I'm going to leave it at. Like I said, prayers, love, and condolences to the Sayers family on the loss of Gil Sayers. He leaves this world at the age of 77. Mark this calendar, September 23rd, 2020, born in 1943. I can't imagine what his family's going through right now. A guy who still chokes up even when he thought about how his career ended with his knee injury. Obviously, a guy who gave a lot of his heart and soul to this game and just loved the game of football, being around his teammates. And please, everybody, keep him in your prayers, him and his family. I know he's gone, but still, wonderful man nonetheless. And I can only think of guys like, not only his teammate Dick Buckus, but Mike Dick and many more, including George Papa Bear Hallis. He's reunited with George Papa Bear Hallis in heaven right now. Of course, you got another running back join, I'm sure, which is Walter Payton. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Men of Steel podcast. As we always know, we are family. And I always leave you. Don't be trolling, be brawling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I yawn.